Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. This is technically a new podcast on the channel known as Analytical Amateurs. We're going to review a piece of media with a formula this time as opposed to our past ones. The formula is discuss a recent relevant movie, like review it basically, discuss a aspect of the film industry related to that movie, and then just do free thoughts related to it. We can't do anything relevant because just in case you guys see this in the future, we're all kind of like quarantined and locked down right now, so nothing new is coming out like in theaters. There's a couple things on like streaming services, but today we're just going to talk about some old stuff that we really like. Yeah,
like Trolls, World Tour.
Yeah, like that masterpiece Tour. Right there. But we have today with us. We have Triple M and Galactic Blame. Say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
What up?
And I'm Alcatabra, and we're gonna start right now. The topic of discussion today is going to be two movies: the Disney Pixar's The Incredibles and Sony's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I just thought we'd open it up a little bit, like, because remember we recorded that one podcast where we talked about what we've been doing during all this, and then you messed it up somehow.
Yeah, that's on me.
Great job.
My computer like just was destroyed basically. Let's put it like that. So I lost that file. Very sad, but I guess we'll go over some stuff we discussed in that. Basically, in that podcast, we just discussed what we've been up to, what we've been watching, and just some general stuff in our life. So, you guys want to talk about that?
What have y'all been watching during quarantine?
Well, I've been watching just a bunch of old stuff that I watched before, just recapping on it. Scott Pilgrim, favorite movie ever. The Heathers TV show, because I want to write a review about it. What else? Face Off and Joker, two movies that Multimedia Man doesn't like.
I disagree. Face Off is my favorite film. What? It's so good.
But I've just been watching old stuff like that.
Yeah. Right now I've been I'm kind of late, like obviously very very late to the party, but I'm kind of binging on JoJo and Sherlock right now. So.
Don't worry, I don't care at all about JoJo, so I'm more late to the party.
I'm still seeing how it's going. I'm not used to that type of like story structure, I guess. Though it's pretty interesting, though. I'm liking it so far.
Yeah, JoJo is an interesting show. I just know it for the memes. I've seen like a couple offshoot episodes, but I just know the memes, to be honest. So yeah.
I binge watched the entire. You want to talk about late to the party? I binge watched the entirety of Breaking Bad in like a week and a half.
Oh yes.
It is my second favorite TV show of all time now.
Dude, what's your first then? What is your
Daredevil.
First?
Daredevil.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Fair. I need to catch up on Breaking Bad. I have not seen it in a long time. I need to catch back.
Dude, Breaking Bad. Oh my gosh.
It blew me away. I can't believe how good it was.
It's like one of those things, like, you know how you get like hyped up for everything and then you kind of get disappointed a little bit because you're like, wow, I was so hyped for this, but it exceeds your expectations. Like it's the
literal antithesis of Game of Thrones for me. Like the ending of Breaking Bad is perfect in every way.
It really is. It's a masterpiece.
So then I watched El Camino, which I enjoyed, and I am now watching Better Call Saul, which is also very, very good.
Ooh, I heard Saul's really good. I haven't gotten into that yet.
I am on season 2 as of today. I really like it.
Ooh, I'm really excited to start that.
I mean, on the note of binging, I watched this a little bit before the quarantine started. I started watching it before that. I went back and actually finished watching The Last Airbender and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, two shows everyone kept talking about. Got into a big debate over The Last Airbender with some people recently. That's a podcast for another time.
You're gonna hate me. I've never actually seen The Last Airbender, but I intend to watch it when it comes to Netflix.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting a live action on Netflix. Good lord.
Oh my gosh.
That's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other issue right there in general, for a variety of reasons.
True. Anything else? I guess we've just been watching. Anything else?
Clone Wars. Clone Wars is happening.
Clone Wars is pretty good, and I'm happy that they actually revived it and everything, to be honest.
Season 7 has some take it or leave it moments. but I think it's good.
All right. So are we gonna move on to the main subject?
Yeah, it's that. Just
Yeah,
now that
sure.
that's out
All
of the
right.
way.
So main subject, like we said, we were discussing The Incredibles and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. These two movies in particular, because they are two specific gems of their kind, being animated superhero movies, and I'll get more into that after we just discuss them as a whole. And I mean, as far as animated superhero movies go, there's like three major blockbusters ones. These two, The Incredibles 2, and the Lego Batman movie, if you count that. There's a bunch of others, like, like those made-for-DVD ones, like the Lego DC movies and stuff. But obviously those are like just
those
on
gems.
Yeah, those are good,
Buy them
but
for
they're
the
like
figures.
they're like oh, that was Music Kid. I used to buy all the Lego Batman DVDs just to get the exclusive little minifigures. But those are like just made for DVD and stuff. So on the note of big theatrical, we have Incredibles, Spider-Verse, Lego Batman movie, and Incredibles 2. And we're discussing the two big ones, being the one that kind of kickstarted this quote-unquote trend, The Incredibles, and the latest one, Spider-Verse. So let's start with Incredibles. Love this movie. It's my second favorite movie of all time. Anything else from you guys?
I think that's like the least controversial opinion in the world. I've never met a single person who hasn't enjoyed The Incredibles.
True.
It's pretty god tier. As a musician, what stands out to me most about this film is its score.
I know, I love the music.
Really
it's like
good.
It has this like Mission Impossible-esque score, which I didn't think would work for a superhero movie, but it really does.
But
Just
the jazz aesthetic of it is just so good. Like Michael Giacchino is really famous for going out there and just giving each film its own like unique feel.
Yeah. What else
all
did he
this
work
Pixar
on?
stuff is just really good. So.
What else did he work on besides this? Did he work on Spider-Verse, or is that another composer I'm thinking of?
No, that was I can't remember. Hold on, let me pull it up. I have it saved.
I know he did like Inside Out, but he's done like a couple other Pixar movies.
Oh wait, Daniel Pemberton did
Yeah, Daniel Pemberton, yeah.
So Giacchino did Rogue One, Doctor Strange. Oh God, I love the guy's work, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I know he's done one or two Bond films.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Giacchino, not Michael Bloomberg. Let's see what we got. Well, he's doing the score for The Batman.
Ooh,
he did Up. Everybody
cool.
loves the Up score.
Mm-hmm.
He did Ratatouille, Coco.
Yeah.
Star
Basically,
Trek,
all the good Pixar movies.
I already said Up. I'm freaking out. Yeah, he's done a lot of Pixar stuff, and basically the point is like everything he does feels different. It helps give each film its own unique feel and like aesthetic, and everybody remembers The Incredibles mostly for the music and just how good it was. And
yeah, he knows when to be bombastic.
Yeah, I think it's like in terms of just like The Incredibles like itself, I think it works so well because there is kind of like, like a spy espionage twist to it that isn't normally seen in a lot of superhero movies now. I mean, you still got like ones that take that type of inspiration, but for the most part, they don't really have that type of like spy feel. So I think that was like really, really interesting how they did that, and I think it just works really well to its own benefit. It just makes it stand out from like other superhero scores, like in general, like even outside of just animation. I think it's just a really standout score in cinema.
Most superhero scores are kind of forgettable, truth be told. Like I remember literally like two songs from the MCU. As much as I love the MCU,
everybody knows the Avengers theme.
Obviously, the Avengers theme. Can You Dig It from Iron Man 3 is a personal favorite.
Oh God, Can You Dig It is incredible in its own right. It's like just this jazz aesthetic, man.
Maybe the Guardians theme. I like that one, but I don't even remember it, to be honest.
Guardians. Actually, I really like Killmonger's theme.
Oh, that one, obviously.
That's a good one.
A pretty good soundtrack.
That's a really good one.
But on the note of Incredibles, like production-wise, this movie is really ahead of its time. And I remember discussing this with some people. Like, if it came out today, I mean, it already is beloved, but it would be even more beloved if it came out like today during the superhero like craze. Like this was like this big superhero movie before superheroes were the mainstream, and so I'm surprised it got such a head start, to be honest. I also note how I'm glad, because some people are thinking it should have come out today, but I'm glad it came out when it did, because back then you were allowed to get away with more, because this movie is really intense and mature.
It's really dark.
I remember that like when I was a kid, the plane scene where the plane explodes scared the hell out of me as a kid.
Oh yeah,
like, that was crazy intense.
Oh, in the original draft, they were supposed to have the pilot that she borrowed the jet from. Yeah, he was supposed to actually like die.
He was gonna like get killed.
My
I was
God.
like, damn.
I was like, dude.
And the movie covers all these other things, mainly to the fact that like it's mature in the way of violence as well as just like tone. Like the movie is pretty much a romance drama about divorce under like in disguise as a superhero film. I didn't get any of this as a kid. I do now. The whole idea of Mr. Incredible going back to his glory days clearly is like a metaphor for him cheating on his wife, and Mrs. Incredible is kind of worried about that. I kind of like the scene where she like in the first half of the movie she's like breaking down like just this poor like sad wife whose husband is like leaving her, and then Edna's all like, pull yourself together, woman, you go own that man, and then she like runs off and actually becomes a superhero and everything. But
I like the scene where he eats cake.
Oh my gosh.
I think like The Incredibles was just super groundbreaking, like in terms of animation too, because that was like back when like Pixar was really pushing like the envelope for animation, because that's when like Disney like animation was like on the decline, and like DreamWorks was starting to get a little bit up there, but like for the most part like Pixar was like the crown jewel of animation. It still kind of is today, but like they were really pushing stuff then, and that was like one of the first like computer generated movies that ever really did like people for the most part. Like they focused on people, and they were like, I don't know if we can do this, and they're like, well, we're gonna try anyway. Like it's just that attitude is just so cool, where they're just like, they don't really know how it's gonna turn out, but they're like, we think we can do it anyway. Like I don't know, I just think that adds to it. I mean, because the animation doesn't like completely hold up all the way today, but like I mean, I think the designs are still really good though, like because you can just tell that they were done on like paper before. It's really cool.
Yeah, like truth be told, I remember the first time like 2 years ago I went back to rewatch Incredibles. It was kind of iffy when I actually looked at how some of the people looked. Okay, so we just had a technical difficulty. Unfortunately, Multimedia Man, Triple M, had to sign out real quick. I don't know if he'll be able to log on later, but right now, Galactic Blame and I will be continuing. So, yeah, just a heads up. Anyways, I guess we'll just get back to where we were. What were we talking about? Animation. So
yes.
I don't know. We talked about how animation doesn't quite hold up, but that's still fine because everything else holds up. On the note of that, the world is surprisingly complex in The Incredibles. Like, you got stuff like all these other characters who are kind of cut out. Some characters are left kind of in the dust, like Mirage has always been a confusing character to me. Syndrome's girlfriend. I mean, he calls her, like, Sweetheart. Yeah, he calls her Sweetheart at one point, so I don't know if they're dating or something, but I always wondered, like, some people thought she was a robot or something, and, like, she was just an AI who got advanced. I mean, at this point, she doesn't see that. She doesn't do much, so she might as well be. Her fate in the end is kind of left unknown. Like, I don't know, did she get arrested? Did she just disappear? Who knows? One interesting note, some people, there was a popular conspiracy theory that Mr. Incredible slept with her at one point that we didn't see in the film. Because, like, remember
the white hair?
Yeah, the white hair on his suit, even though they never came into contact. That's questionable.
Yep. I mean, my headcanon is that's a no.
Yeah, I don't think.
But hey, everyone's got their own theories.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I think the whole setting of it is just really, really interesting because it's got like the whole '60s aesthetic, but it's got like some neo-futurism aspects, like the whole 0 point energy and like the jets and everything. Like it's very old but new, so it like really keeps a timeless feel to it.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, superhero movies now are, like, very modern, but they still kind of have a little bit of a futuristic twist to them. But I feel like at some point they're going to get a little, outdated in terms of references and stuff. But I think it really works to Incredibles' advantage that they created their own time period in a way that is, it's forever timeless, I guess. So it's pretty cool.
I remember I was confused as how they didn't have smartphones in Incredibles 2, but then I forgot, like, it's still, like, omitted after the last one. Because I was like, these guys have, like, jetpacks and laser cannons. They don't have smartphones yet? They don't have anything like that?
Yeah, when I was, like, watching it when I was a kid, I was not really sure. I mean, I could tell it was kind of in the past, but I wasn't, like, confused about, like, the time. I just think that they did such a good job with that I didn't really, like... I thought it was cool, but I really wasn't confused the whole time. For like an 8-year-old who doesn't know anything about the 1960s. So that's pretty cool.
And I guess one of the major selling points of this whole movie, as well as most of what Pixar does, is characters. Like, this movie has a really good ensemble. The Incredibles family itself is really well developed. You got a Mr. Incredible going through his midlife crisis. Elastigirl is just trying to be like the supportive like mother who's trying to keep the family together, and everything keeps falling apart. Like
Violet's the angsty teen.
Violet's the angsty teen. Dash is the hyperactive kid. Jack is the meme. I feel really bad for Elastigirl though, like how she has to keep all this together. Like her husband, she thinks he's cheating on him. Turns out he might be in danger. Then her kids get dragged along and almost die, and she has to find a way to keep them safe while in a foreign locale. And, like, this stops Syndrome from, like, destroying the city and everything. Like, she goes through a lot of shit. And I commend her for keeping up with it.
She's, like, #1 mom in animation.
Pretty much. Violet, I think they handled her story surprisingly well. Like, at first I didn't really care about the other the kids, Violet or Dash. They were just kind of there. But I kind of like how they handled, like, the circumstance they were in. Like, they... like, the speech their mom, the speech is all like,
where
guys,
it's like, they will kill you.
Die.
This isn't a show. And I was like, oh, dang. And they're like, oh, okay. So I don't know. I think that's pretty, that was a really cool thing that they're acknowledging the reality of it, like within something that is not in reality. I think that's pretty cool. It really gives it the whole thing. Because you know that they don't really have like plot armor or anything. I mean, they still kind of do, but they try.
They like explain that like they have to work to keep that plot armor. I like that they actually do really flesh out their characters. Like Violet learns to have confidence in herself. There's like her whole angsty vibe comes in play with her powers. How she doesn't really know how to control her force fields. She feels like she kind of let down her mom when she couldn't put a force field on the plane, and then she ends up protecting her brother and all that. And then she ends up with Tony in the end, and that was nice. And Incredibles 2 kind of retconned all that, but we're not talking about that.
We're not going to talk about that today, please. Please.
Dash himself, didn't really have much characterization other than, I mean, he's a hyperactive kid. He was more of just the fun one. And he like got
slight character arc. I mean, he got a little more humble. Like, he was very, very
just like, a hyperactive
egotistical at the beginning, and then he kind of got more humble. Like, he was willing to get, like, second in the race at the end, and he wasn't trying to, like, outpace everyone. So I think that was, pretty cool. But, I mean, I think he has, like, him and, I mean, obviously Jack, but there's not really much you can
do
with Jack. But I think they had some really, really good development there.
Yeah.
And can we talk about Syndrome, please?
Of course, Syndrome. Like,
can we talk about how great Syndrome is?
And
how to do a super villain in a superhero movie,
like Syndrome is just amazing. From like just his charm, like his charm and personality, his motivations, the way he goes about things, it's just like crazy good.
And I just think like his whole thing. I mean, not only like the backstory and the motivations, but the fact that it's like, inherited powers versus like make your own type of thing. I just think that's so like complex. Like it makes a really cool dynamic because Syndrome's like a regular dude. He's just like super super smart.
Yeah.
But that like really counteracts, Mr. Incredible and everything. And I think that's just a really cool like, duality right there. I just think that's pretty interesting. Like it further reinforces like how they're different in that regard.
And his whole like ego, the way he goes about it, like he killed like countless superheroes just just for Mr. Incredible. Like I like the idea that he's obsessed with like this guy and getting revenge on him. Like
like he was a super nerd before for superheroes, And even when he got crushed, like he was still a super nerd for them, but he just like got super twisted. Like that's just very interesting.
Yeah,
Like
like
he's
and I
still
like how
he's obsessed with them.
exactly. I like how when he actually captures Mr. Incredible again, and like because remember he thought he killed him, and then he turns out
Yeah.
he didn't, and he instead of like getting mad, he actually like geeks out. He's like, "You
Yeah.
used the body of another hero to like hide? That's amazing!" And I'm just
Yeah.
like, this guy is a fucking villain.
It's so cool. But I mean, and it's also like I think his whole arc in general is kind of ahead of its time because it's kind of like a commentary on, you know, elitism of like fans to like celebrities, like, oh, you owe me this or something.
Yeah.
Like that's his whole arc basically relies on that.
Like this whole
And
movie
I mean,
was
in a way, like Mr. Incredible was harsh on him, but at the same time, like he was coming on too strong. So like in a way that they're both kind of in the wrong. Like I like the way that he developed into a villain is both simultaneously his fault and also Mr. Incredible's. Like I think that there's no like one person to blame in this, and that there's a lot on both sides that really contribute to that. I think that's way more compelling than like Mr. Incredible doing something bad and then he's just like a regular kid. You know, that it just happens to not work out for him, or he was just a terrible kid and Mr. Incredible didn't do anything wrong. I just think it's more compelling that it's on both of them.
Yeah. And I like the obviously everyone like quotes his special line when everyone's super no one will be. That's a pretty like interesting way to like just approach like deconstructing society. Like again, like this is all just for Mr. Incredible and how he takes his like elitist mindset to try to just destroy all of society because of how selfish he is. Like that's pretty cool. Like and
I don't know why, but like anytime I think about like in the future how, you know, there's like talk about like how you can maybe customize your children in the future. Like I don't know why, but I always think of that quote when I hear that is like when you like start making everybody like perfect or the same, then it's like, well, no one's going to be perfect or different if you're just going to make everybody the same. I don't know. I just thought that was like, I don't know why I always think about that.
And that's
it's just
like,
kind of weird, but
that kind of like ties into
a
whole another underlying like message of the movie, which is like expressing yourself and being special if you're special and stuff. Because you know we live in times where everyone wants to like get prizes or like be awarded for just like trying. Like trying is good, but you know having talent isn't all that bad either. The same like message goes into like Ratatouille, how the movie's all about like not everyone can cook, but talent can come from anywhere. So if you have exceptional talents, like don't be afraid to use them.
Man, this movie's even more ahead of its time than I thought it was.
So,
it's so like the whole theme, the characters, everything is just so ahead of its time. It's just crazy. I don't know. I think that makes it all the better, honestly. You know, I mean, this is like before the internet was really big, and it has like so many themes and messages that have like become super enhanced because of the internet and like social media. It's just crazy. I don't know. It's like they predicted the future. It's kind of crazy.
I do like how the action is handled in this movie on like a technical level because again, even though the animation was new, they were surprisingly like crafty with it. Like everyone loves the I believe it's called like the 100-mile dash scene where Dash runs from the bad guys. That scene is still like my favorite like super speed scene ever. Like no offense, Quicksilver and the X-Men, still love the dash scene more personally. Yeah. Like I just like how crafty he is with his powers.
Yeah. And then I like the part where him and Violet like combine and use their powers together.
Yeah, that was cool.
I thought that was really cool. Like the hamster ball, basically. That was super cool. Because you don't really see like, you know, at the time at least, you didn't really see too many like superhero team ups that really like combine people's powers. Yeah, and the fact that they're just kind of going with it and they don't know what they're doing just makes it better. Like it adds to the tension. Because if they knew what they were doing, then you'd be like, oh, they'll be fine, but you know, you're kind of going along with the journey with them, which makes it so much better.
This movie as a whole is just so creative with powers. Like
it's just so good.
Like characters like Elastigirl. Like I always thought stretchy powers was lame as shit. Like as a kid, I never liked like elastic powers, but Elastigirl like just makes it work. Like scenes like where she's sneaking into the base and she's like stuck in all those doors and she's using her elastic powers to get guards at different points. Like that's surprisingly creative. I wouldn't have thought of that with a character like that. Or Mr. Incredible, like I was like, all his powers is just strength. But even then, he manages to get a lot done with it. So I respect like this movie for making these characters like that. Everyone, of course, then there's Frozone. Frozone I felt was always useless as a kid, but I kind of like his addition. Not just for the "Where's my super suit" scene, even though that is hilarious.
It's a great scene.
I just like his character as a whole. He's surprisingly.
Yeah, I like him as like the uncle of like the kids. Like,
yeah,
that's pretty hilarious.
What else is there to talk about in regards? Talk about characters, talk about production. As a whole, this movie, and its like message and stuff about like just society.
It's just so good.
What's so good? Yeah, it's just so good. I don't
know
what
it's
to
society.
say.
We live in a society. It's the OG. Like, we live in a society before the society meme.
Like, I like the idea of the whole superheroes being a legal thing, and then working around that. And I'll point out, yes, at the end of this movie, they aren't legal again. They're just like respected again, which is why the sequel kind of dives more into that. But
yeah.
Even so, I just like want to see more stories that cover like ground like this. It's kind of how Watchmen covers a more realistic angle to superheroes. This kind of did the same thing with how like the good they do is kind of not respected by everyone. There's also some weird stuff. Like, remember, I spotted this. I watched this movie yesterday. Only spotted this for the first time. In the scene where superheroes are being sued and stuff, you see a newspaper that says like X-Ray Peepin' Tom on it. And I was like, this is a kid's movie. I was like, Jesus, this is a kid's movie.
There's just so many layers to it. It's just so good. Man, it's like lightning in a bottle almost.
Yeah.
I just don't think you could have anything else like that again, you know.
Which is exactly why.
Even today, yeah. We're not. Stop. Don't go there. We're not. We already said we weren't going to go there.
So
we're not going to do that. Yeah.
Long story short, I just want to see more of this world in some way. Like, they could flesh out the world and like characters of the Incredibles in so many ways, like comic books, shows. I don't want them to oversaturate it, but don't be afraid to like just step out of the box with it. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Why do I feel like they're gonna get on that with Disney Plus? They're gonna have something at some point.
There'll probably be some Incredible show.
There'll be something.
Which means, should we move? Are we done here? Like, overall, should we move on to the next movie, or is there any overarching thoughts?
Yeah, we can keep going. We're talking about Spider-Verse next, right?
Yes. So now we'll talk about Lord and Miller's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh man,
A Majesty of
such
a Project.
A good movie.
I remember back in, I believe, 2017, this movie was announced as an animated Spider-Man movie, and I just saw like this was before any trailers or any of that. I was like, an animated Spider-Man movie made by the people who made the Amazing Spider-Man films and the Emoji Movie.
Ooh.
Okay.
Can we preface this with just like a little talk about Sony animation real quick? Because I got some personal feelings about that. So I always kept telling people, like, man, Sony has like so much potential as an animation studio. Like, you have no idea. But it's just they got to like step away from the like Illumination pull, and they got to go more like Pixar-y, right? Mm-hmm. Because they really know how to make themselves some cheap cash grabs. But if they actually do try, they can make some really good stuff. So I was like, I don't know about that, but. Dude, when that trailer came out, I was like, this is going to be good. I wasn't even scared. I was just like, this is going to be good. This has to be good. There's no way this can't be good. Because I watched it like 1,000 times just looking at just the animation itself, because you could see like the two dots, like the way that a comic book is printed. I was like, that detail is insane. I was like, this is so good.
I was just like, something looking this amazing is illegal. Like, Jesus.
This can't be real.
I was like, this looks way too good. I saw that movie, absolutely loved it.
Like, I mean, we were talking about how Incredibles was pushing the bounds of animation at the time. Spider-Verse is pushing the bounds of animation at this time. Because, honestly, all animated movies are, like, looking the same right now, not gonna lie. Because they're all trying to go, like, more and more realistic, which is fine. But, like, Into the Spider-Verse just embraces its comic book and its animation roots and just combines it in the best way possible. And they're so extra with everything, and I love it. It's just so great.
It just looks so good. Like, I don't even know how.
Amazing.
There's so many layers and work that go into it. Like, it's just incredible.
Yeah, it's just the frame rate, like how it always changes and everything depending on like the character's journey. I was like, what the heck? I was like, I can't. I was like, I'm paying attention to all this stuff, and even I can't like get everything in it. It's just so much going on at the same time, but it's not like sensory overload. It's like enough where you can keep watching it and you somehow won't get the same experience every time because you'll find something new. It's crazy. Like, it's so good. It's like the perfect like rewatching movie.
Yeah, like every time I rewatch it, I see something new. Like for one, mainly because they went all out with developing the world and like settings. Like every environment looks just all like vibrant and all overloaded with all kinds of stuff. I like how they actually got a bunch of directors together and like asked them to help them make alternate universe movies and products. Like they're all like, hey, if your stuff existed in another dimension, what would it be like? Like for example, Edgar Wright took Shaun of the Dead and he turned it into From Dusk Till Dawn, and there's like a poster for that in New York. And I don't know if it's a sequel or just an alternate version, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then they had like the car, which was like, it was like a certain model that was supposed to be from like Yugoslavia that like failed or something, but it like was successful in that dimension. I was like,
yeah,
dude,
like other stuff,
there's just so much history behind it. It's crazy. And then they spent like 2 years just working on the art style.
Yeah,
like
that
that's
art
what I heard.
is just beautiful.
It's
and
crazy.
It was worth it.
It's gorgeous. Like it's just, I was like, this is what animation like is supposed to be right here. Like this is, I was like, I don't think we're gonna get something this good ever again.
Exactly. I'm just like, this is like lightning in a bottle strikes twice.
It really is. It's
like,
just, there's just so much good. Man, okay, should we like, okay.
Oh, should I actually get into like the story, I guess? Like just the story in the world and stuff?
Yeah, sure.
Obviously, the movie,
story's so good.
Yeah, the movie focuses on Miles Morales as well, and then you have his journey to become Spider-Man as he teams up with Peter Parker from like the main comics dimension, Gwen Stacy, Penny Parker, Spider-Man Noir, and I almost forgot Spider-Ham. I don't know why. And Spider-Ham. This like team up, honestly, like, I remember when it was announced and everyone's thinking, what other Spider people are we going to see? Because there's like a bajillion of them. I think this was a pretty good like ensemble cast.
Yeah,
because like,
you got so much diversity.
Yeah, you got OG, you got Gwen, you have Penny Parker, who I didn't even like know before this movie came out. You got Spider-Ham for the sake of the memes, Noir for the sake of the nostalgia. 2099 is like in the end credit scene, so he'll be in the next one probably. But I think that was a good cast overall.
Can we just talk about how Spider Noir is literally like Nicolas Cage's best work?
Like that man is Nicolas Cage is just amazing with Noir. Like whoever thought to cast this man is a genius.
They really are.
I would have never thought of that. Like that's just brilliant.
It really is. It's so good. And like the story itself is just, it's such a good like core Spider-Man story, but it branches out from like, you know, like a normal stereotypical like, oh, Uncle Ben is dead, whatever, because you take a new character and you do a different thing with it, but it still represents what Spider-Man is.
It's such a bold risk.
Oh, it's so good.
Like it's such a bold risk with like how they take it, because like most comic book stories nowadays are like afraid to get weird. Like they stay like in some semblance of like realism and like stuff.
Yeah.
So this one just like goes on like there are other dimensions. You got a freaking talking pig teaming up with a robot anime girl and a black and white Spider-Man as they try to take out a collider. It's
can I just take a time to thank Guardians of the Galaxy for like doing something weird?
Yes,
and then now
like
everyone's like, okay, cool, we can actually do weird stuff now. Thank you, James Gunn.
Yes.
Like, we needed that so bad, but it's like, I can't decide if that, like, story-wise, if that or Spider-Man PS4 are my favorite two Spider-Man stories. They're, like, tied, but for different reasons, but they're both just so good. Oh, I can't just not with this movie. I can't say anything bad about it.
And it's surprisingly like well paced with how much it has to manage. Like since Miles is the main character, he gets the most screen time and development. The movie focuses on his like early life, then shows him like learning his powers, and like throughout the movie he becomes better and better at being Spider-Man. Then you have Peter Parker dealing with like midlife crisis. Gwen Stacy's kind of like shut
midlife
out.
crisis. Peter Parker is great.
Exactly. Then you got like Gwen's dealing with her
Peter
like isolated issues. in all honesty, like, as much as I love the other Spider people, they're kind of just there for the sake of, like, showing off what the broader world is like. Like, they don't really add much, characterization, but it's still nice to have them there. On the note of Miles, I do like how they went about his story and stuff. Like, some things I wish they had fleshed out more, like Prowler, for example, and his relationship with him. But even so,
me too.
I like the idea of, like, Miles being, like, new to this, being obviously that he doesn't want to just be Spider-Man right off the bat. He has to get used to the powers. Kingpin, goodness. If we're talking about designs.
Kingpin, man.
Kingpin is like the most.
Okay, first of all, Kingpin's design is just amazing.
Exactly. Like, that's like the most.
Just the tiny head and the humongous body.
I'm just like, I'm so glad they decided to just get weird with it. Because if it was just like some guy in a business suit, he would be nowhere near as entertaining. Other characters,
I don't know how they make his design so funny, but they still make him like a legitimately intimidating villain.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Then you've got Tombstone. I mean, Tombstone was just kind of there to be his bodyguard, but like Dr. Olivia Octavius, I like her like wacky antics design. There's that little line. Some people are thinking
hers is so good.
Yeah, some people think like she and Aunt May are like best friends or something. So Aunt May might have crime connections because of that one-off line where she calls her Liv. And you got other characters like the Scorpion. Looks weird as shit, and I love it. The villains as a whole, I just like how they had this crazy ensemble to fight the heroes.
Yeah, I wish they like expanded on them a little bit more, but I mean, you can save that for other stuff. I think they did really good in their designs. I think Tombstone could have used a little bit more work, but I think other than that, they nailed the designs on them.
Yeah, they had the perfect like just ensemble to fight a bunch of spider people, because like it would have just been like a bunch of Green Goblins, for example, wouldn't have been as entertaining. Yeah. But I like how they had all these different characters. Prowler as a whole, Prowler was fucking terrifying. Like, jeez.
Prowler was. His theme. Oh my gosh, Prowler's theme.
Like, it's up there alongside Killmonger's for me. Like, he's fucking intimidating.
Like the elephant stuff. Like, I was like, what is this? Like,
it's just so intense and entertaining.
The score, like, they really pushed so much stuff in that. Like, the score and the soundtrack are both like amazing.
And I do like how Miles' story like comes full circle with him using like Spider-Man as a way to get closer to his family and kind of discover who he is. Like, this movie has a whole self-identity like theme to it, because Miles is kind of just like all over the place, kind of challenged by life, like we see through his art how he draws stuff like no expectations and stuff. He finds escapism through people like Uncle Aaron. And then eventually he gets called to adventure after he loses Aaron. He gets a pep talk from his dad. And then he eventually like goes out to become the Spider-Man he was meant to be. Leading to the What's Up Danger scene that everybody loves so much. I still love that shot of the upside down city. I don't know why.
It's so good.
I just love that shot so much.
I love it, and I love the music that they did for it as well. Because they mix like his like theme with the What's Up Danger song. I was like, I can't even listen to What's Up Danger like the soundtrack version without like, I have to listen to the movie version because the movie version like just elevates it on a whole other level. Oh, it's so good.
I don't even know why. I just like Miles' design in that scene with the jacket and like the shorts over his suit and like Nikes. Just looks.
It really
like,
is.
He just looks
so
like
slick.
Like a newbie Spider-Man, and I like that. Like,
and I like that he like made his costume through like the spray paint. That was really
I honestly
cool.
like
That's
that
a
design.
Cool character moment.
Like, because I was thinking they would just go like with the regular Miles with like the red lines and like the professional suit. I like that it's kind of like a normie like new suit that he kind of made his own. It just looks great.
It's a little rough up looking, but it's still clean. Oh, it's so good. Everything.
I don't know how he fits his hair under that mask, but he does.
He does. I mean, you could argue the same with all of them.
Fair enough. Other than that, this movie has a lot of surprising drama to it, and and just like Incredibles, is surprisingly mature for its time. Like, Spider-Man gets fucking crushed to death by Kingpin, like
by
Jesus.
Tombstone. Kingpin. Oh my god.
Then you got Kingpin shoots his uncle. Kingpin and him like have this full-on brawl. Like, it's a really intense. Like, it's just surprisingly dark and mature for a film of its time, because you expect these superhero films to be as like lighthearted as possible. I'm glad that it wasn't afraid to step out of the box, just like Incredibles wasn't.
Yeah, Aaron tries to murder his nephew, even though he doesn't know it's actually him. It's still really dark.
And then in the end, I kind of just like how much potential this movie leaves. Like it's the perfect Kickstarter. Like there's so many places you could go from here. You want to follow Miles in the future, you could follow Gwen, you could follow Peter, you could do all kinds of stuff. And on that note, I mean, obviously they've announced a sequel. Unfortunately, it's been pushed back to 2022 instead of 2021. So I have to wait even longer. But I mean, I hope they take their time. I don't want them to rush it. I want this sequel to be as firm as possible. Take your time. Take all the time you need. I'll be patient. Because I trust
hopefully
them.
them pushing it back is like less likely for it to be just a cash grab. I doubt it's going to be like that, but you know. It can happen still, so hopefully it just doesn't. So hopefully they're working on it and they're doing a really good job of expanding the universe.
I hope they just don't overdo it, because I know how businesses can be when you get like a big hit like this. Like you want to make a million shows, comics, side projects. Take your time.
You gotta make all the toys.
Yeah, all the toys. Just take your time. Make it look good. Don't be afraid to step out of the boxes. Again, the designs of the characters, the world, everything looks great. Let's get more of that.
Yeah, and then it'll be organically successful.
Yeah.
And then everyone will be happy.
If I had to be critical, though, because as much as I love this movie, gotta be a little critical, some of the logistics of it needed better explanation, mainly revolving around the Collider and Kingpin. Like, Kingpin's whole plan is to bring back his family. Makes sense. Kingpin is like a family man like that. The only problem is, like, it will literally, like, destroy reality if he does so. So it's kind of pushing it. Also, I don't know.
And he like knows it too.
Yeah,
but he's like I don't care.
Also, like, how are they gonna live in his world? Because remember, your like atoms will disintegrate if you stay in the wrong world for too long.
Yeah.
Like, there's even in the there was a deleted like script part of the script that they took out that they wanted to add later, but they couldn't. Where there was gonna be another Spider person who was like an Australian Spider-Man, and as soon as he got there, he would just shrivel up and die from like atom loss or something. Just to show. Yeah, there was this, like, I'll send it to you later in case I haven't already. But there was this whole, like, scene where he would be there and it's like, what happens if we stay here for too long? Then his atoms would have just shriveled up and he would just, like, turn to dust. And they would have been like, yeah, we should probably get home.
That out now.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Other than that, that just needs some explanation. The Collider itself, like, obviously they mentioned how it's kind of, like, distorted. So, like, for example, Gwen Stacy came to the dimension like a week earlier than everyone because time travel. That's kind of weird, but I guess I could buy it. I don't buy it.
It's a small thing.
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
I don't know why I found this funny, but there's a line where she mentions she says, my spider sense told me to go to Brooklyn Vision's Academy, which is how she meets Miles, and I'm like, that's a bit convenient. I'm like, I don't get how Spider-Man
That's not how that works.
I don't think your spider sense will tell you specifically to do that. But okay. Other than that, everything else works out. So, like, I hope that they figure out a good way to like handle the sequel. Like, maybe they'll introduce some sort of like collider stabilizer, so like you can wear something that prevents your atoms from decaying.
Yeah.
So that they can team up again.
Do something like that. They'll find a way to explain it.
Other than that, on the note of music, we mentioned music with Incredibles. Music in this film, like there's the songs that were featured in it and the soundtrack itself. The soundtrack itself, surprisingly entertaining. Like, I already downloaded it. I love jams.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
Like, it's just really techno and surprisingly upbeat. I don't usually listen to techno music, but I think they handled it pretty well here. Stuff like the house fight theme. Like, I like the whole house fight because I like house fights for some reason. I don't know why. Other than that, the featured songs, they were okay. Not like songs I'd listen to, but I still think that they were like integrated pretty well.
Yeah.
Other than that, this movie paced itself really well, as I mentioned. Overall, just amazing. Would like to see more as long as they handle it correctly. On that note, for a brief discussion, we gotta dive into Sony as a whole and kind of just where they're going with superheroes. Because obviously, since we're on lockdown, this hasn't been mentioned once. But they're still continuing their Sony universe. Now they have a deal to actually use Spider-Man. Did you hear what they're calling their universe now?
No. What are they doing?
So they officially titled it the Sony Pictures Universe of Marvel Characters, which translates to Spunk. That's fun. On that note, apparently Venom 2 is called, you know what Venom 2 is called? Venom Let There Be Carnage. That is the official title.
Gosh.
That's... I don't like to judge a book by its cover, because there are some weird titles to movies I like, but that's...
Yeah, I don't know how it's gonna go, because, like, Venom was, like, very divisive. I mean, personally, I liked it. I thought it was a fun, like, popcorn movie, you know? Mm-hmm. I don't think it was, like, you know, I mean, I watched it on a plane, and I was like, okay, this is fine. Like, I didn't think it was as bad as a lot of people said it was, but, let's see how the sequel goes.
Sure. Honestly, I bring this up because I don't think this is the way that Sony should honestly be going with things, and Spider-Verse should be a note that this, like, they should go in the direction of animation. Like, this is the whole lesson I have, like, for the whole podcast. I think the lesson should be superheroes work better, well, could work better and will work better in animation as opposed to live action. Like, live action is fine. Obviously, I love the MCU as much as the next guy, but I think animation is where they would shine the most, because, I mean, they're comic book characters, they're drawn, so animating them would make them look and feel a lot more natural, not to mention how much more you could do and get away with. Like,
especially now, just because, like, with MCU, I mean, like, you know, it's just going to be weird because it's, you know, obviously, like, it's going to fall off now with after Endgame and everything, and after Far From Home, you know, and, like, with Black Widow is going to get pushed back, like, you know, obviously, like, that was going to be pretty successful because it's, you know, they're still using an OG character, but it's, you know, it's just going to be weird now that this is probably the best time to switch to that medium, because I feel like live action superhero movies are going to still keep doing well, but I don't think they're going to start bringing in the same numbers that they used to. I think it's like the end of an era in that regard.
And everyone's, like, already doing it. Like, you got Marvel doing it, DC doing it. So if Sony were to, like, make an animated universe or just animated movies, it would bring in, like, more attention because you can be more expressive with it. They don't all have to look as bombastic as Spider-Verse, but they should be in that sort of category. Like, now that you have the technique down, you can make more samples like Spider-Verse in the future.
Yeah.
And, I mean, obviously it would take more time. Animation takes a lot of time, so you'd have to pace out your movies more. But it would pay off in the long run because, again, they're a lot more expressive in animation. There's a lot more you can do with characters and just events and action. So I think it would benefit them more to sort of look towards that more, to get more back into the cartoony roots of comic books, because they're cartoony by nature. But I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully Spider-Verse 2 will be as good as I hope it will be. I have high hopes. I trust you guys. Please don't let me down.
Please. It's all we have left.
True. Other than that, just conclude with, like, overall thoughts. Like we said, Spider-Verse 2 has unfortunately been delayed. Sad. Hopefully they can improve from that. Incredibles. I noticed how they don't really explain where superpowers come from in Incredibles, and that was all.
Yeah, I like the theories about it where they're like experiments. They're like government experiments, which, like, I can see that. I think it's better that way because it's not really important to the story.
Like, Brad Bird himself, like, brought up in an interview, he's like, I don't know the answer and I never want to answer it because then it becomes really complicated. Like, yeah,
and then you would, like, distract from the whole point of it.
Yeah,
I think.
So I think that's like okay because, you know, the whole theme of the movie is just like the movie's a lot more thematic than, like, scientific, so I can let that slide.
It's more grounded. They don't need to get wrapped up in, like, government conspiracy stuff, like, all that much. They already do that a little bit, but they don't need to do it that much.
I must say, while Incredibles 2 falls flat story-wise, I do think it really did, like, improve on the animation like field, like, compared to other Pixar movies.
I think the designs were still
they were really stellar, like, technically.
Like, the angularness of a lot of, like, the traits of the characters was, like, pretty cool. You know, compared to, like, because basically Disney and Pixar's, like, character designs look, like, the same at this point.
Yeah.
But Incredibles, like, still, like, stood out design-wise. So I think that was pretty good. They made Violet a little too angsty looking. Like, they gave her
Violet looked like
really baggy eyes.
Yeah, she looked really, like,
okay.
tired. I was like,
but, like, she already looked kind of angsty. Like, they made her eyes smaller, and then they gave her, like, really big bags. I was like, okay. Like, maybe they could pull back a little bit on that, but other than that, I think they did a job.
And
They improved
yeah.
Tony.
Tony
Obviously.
looks completely different.
Tony doesn't look Uncanny Valley this time, so that's
like he went and got like plastic surgery in between like the two films, like in the
maybe
5
when he got his
span.
mind wiped, they took pity on him. They're like, okay, dude, like we'll fix you now. So you don't look like an abomination.
That's a perfect headcanon, honestly. But I think that's everything. I guess.
Yeah.
I must say, Spider-Verse inspired me to actually go and check out some of these characters. Like Penny Parker, very interesting comic series. Spider-Ham, surprised they didn't overplay him. But, yeah.
Especially with John Mulaney.
Yeah, I was like, they're probably going to
John Mulaney to voice a character in your movie. You don't really do too much comedic stuff with them. That's a little interesting. But hey, there's room to keep going.
True.
So.
Bring Nicolas Cage back. Of any Spider-Person, please bring back more. Like, that's the one for me.
That's like Nicolas Cage's career should just be Spider-Noir now.
But, yeah, I think that's about everything. So, in the future, we're just, like, future ideals. I want to try to approach tackling Incredibles in the future. Mainly the screensaver of Incredibles 2. Might try to rewrite that character. Who knows? And in the note of Spider-Verse, have a Spider-Verse video in the works. But it's kind of shaky right now, so who knows where that'll go. But I think that's, it. So, thanks for listening, guys. And good night for now.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.